Style in photography is a topic every photographer quickly encounters when they embark on this journey of capturing photographs with their camera. I think it's natural, once we get to know the medium we're working with and build some groundwork off of which we intend to further grow, we begin to ask ourselves, what is it that makes me unique? Is there even anything that makes me unique? What is my style? How has this been for you? Do you ask yourself this regularly, or have you already found your answer? I personally find myself thinking about these questions every now and then, but not as much as I used to. While looking for something on my hard drive, I came across a video I made a year or two ago, in which I was sharing my thoughts on a struggle I was facing. I was noticing a change in my style, but I wasn't able to let go of what I was praised for already to let my style evolve into something more unique. My thoughts at that time were more about the change of style, not the pursuit of having a style. But it was just recently that I found myself thinking about just that, the search for a style. What was remarkable was that I thought to have found an answer to the question about how to find one's style. So in this video, I want to share those thoughts and that answer that I found for myself, even though that answer is in no way to be taken as definitive, it's just a thought that came to my mind. So let's explore this popular question. When speaking of a style in photography, I think the term mostly refers to a number of qualities and characteristics of one's photography that seem to repeat throughout the entire work of a photographer. It's these traits that connect the photographs of the photographer and make it apparent that they were created by them. I've experienced the power of this myself when viewing photography. For example, when I see some pictures on Instagram, I often recognize the photographer before seeing the post's creator. Or just a couple days ago actually, I was working on a mood board and looking through various photographs on Pinterest. At one point, I saw a photograph and thought, this really looks like something 1924 US would make. And it turns out, it was a picture from them. I got a little excited, I have to say, that I recognized their work. Elle May and Christian Watson, the two photographers behind the brand 1924 US, have developed such a strong sense of photographic style that it was possible for me to recognize their work without knowing it's theirs. Factors that I would count as characteristics of their photography are the brown color palette when they decide to shoot in color, the often soft and slightly darker lighting, and especially the subject matter that mostly consists of household settings with an antique touch, wide Australian landscapes, and overall seemingly quiet scenes. I actually made a whole video about the two around half a year ago in which I break down their style. I'll leave a link to it in the upper right corner in case you haven't seen it and are interested. I would like to give you one more example to strengthen our understanding of style in photography. These are photographs from Chinese photographer Zixing Liu. Even though you might be seeing her photographs for the first time, I think we can agree that she has distilled a unique, distinctive style that makes her work stand out and be a work of her own. Her photographs could be categorized as a form of self-portraits, but they are arguably far from simply being a self-portrait. One could describe her work as a mixture of self-portraiture and still-life photography because, for every photograph, she meticulously builds a set mostly consisting of a mirror, flowers, other plants, and various household furniture, such as tables and chairs. Another typical feature in her photography is a blurry texture that looks like it's photographed through a fogged-up window or a thin shower curtain. I think we can sum up these aspects as her subject matter, which itself is so unique that I would count it to the key factors that constitute her style. In addition, of course, come factors such as composition, lighting, and colors. Her compositions are quiet, clean, and have a sense of flow. She utilizes geometry to add to the clarity and visual simplicity of a composition, which is especially prevalent in her use of a perfectly round mirror. This is also how she evokes the flow in her compositions. She uses many round shapes and accentuates or extends them with other elements such as plants, differently textured items, or her own body. The way she implements herself in the photos is also a distinct characteristic of her photography. She treats the position of her body similar to the other shapes that make up the composition. She takes in poses that extend the already existing shapes and seemingly blends into the flow of her compositions. One major skill Zixing has mastered is an understanding and feeling for balance. I think this is one of the key aspects of her compositions that make them so effective. It almost seems like she's not a photographer but a designer with a set of objects or elements that she needs to place in a visually balanced way. Now, moving on to the lighting, it accompanies the composition's quiet nature well by being quiet itself. The lighting is mostly softly diffused and low in contrast, which conveys a feeling of neutrality and sobriety of the lighting. It avoids to be a character of its own and instead simply supports the composition. Similarly unobtrusive are the colors in her work. She steers away from strong, vibrant imagery and instead puts color into the accompanying position to the composition, just like the lighting. Her color palettes are muted and selective. She seems to enjoy using colored backdrops, whereby the colors are always a subtle choice. So the four aspects of her photography, subject matter, composition, lighting, and color, are good points to consider when trying to figure out Zixing's style. However, there is one more aspect that should not be disregarded, a more contextual aspect: her themes in photography. Themes in photography are ideas or concepts that a photographer repeatedly implements in their work. And the first of two, as she writes on her website, is about the symbiosis between human beings and nature. Further, the text states, "To some extent, it can be said that human beings and the rest of the natural world are equal. We live in the same world, breathing the same air, mutual tolerance." In her work, she tries to find a state of harmony between humans and nature, full of peace and emotion, because in this state of symbiosis, beauty will be most embodied. Her second theme is an alternative perspective on familiar things. Familiarity can lead to fixation of a perspective, and in her work, Zixing aims to shift that perspective and view things from a different angle in hopes to encounter new findings. Zixing adds, "This is not only for things, but also for understanding others and our hearts." So with this short analysis of Zixing Liu's style, I think we've now all grasped what is meant by style in photography, or at least my understanding of it. If you feel that I missed something, please add to the conversation in the comments. Now, before elaborating on how to find a style, we need to discuss why to find a style. I perceive this question sometimes in different tonalities that express different feelings towards a style. Not every photographer wants a style. However, I would argue that over time, every photographer will develop a style whether they intend to or not. More on that a bit later. I think the motivation to find a style roots in our human desire to be unique. Unique in character, unique in appearance, and unique in our craft. The counter-argument brought up by photographers opposing the development of their own style is their freedom of creation. The argument is that they do not want to box themselves in because they enjoy the freedom of creating whatever they want. To this, however, I would like to argue against, because I believe a style should not be perceived as a constraint, but instead a natural attraction. I also believe that a photographer should be completely free to create whatever they desire, but that does not exclude the possibility of still developing a style, because I would argue that the process can be a pretty unconscious one. And that brings me to the thought I recently had that felt like an answer or a conclusion to the question of how do I find a style. "You do not find your style, it finds you," is a brief and simplified version of my conclusion. You see, what we analyzed in the photography of Zixing Liu is nothing more than her personal preferences. She builds her compositions with geometrical shapes because she likes to. She uses mostly muted colors because she likes to. And every other aspect of her photographic style is a result of what she enjoys to do in photography. Your photographic style is simply a manifestation of what brings you joy in photography. This is what I was referring to when I said that I believe a style should not be perceived as a constraint, but instead a natural attraction. By continuously shooting and practicing photography, you will encounter all sorts of aspects in photography that you will develop a liking or an aversion for. This process is the slow creation of your style. This is why I argue that every photographer will eventually find a style whether they want to or not, because they will develop a taste which is fundamental for a style. Over time, you simply end up mostly shooting the subjects, the compositions, the lighting, the color, and the themes that you enjoy. Style is just a matter of time, experience, and personal taste. So, as dissatisfying and inconclusive this answer may appear, it is how it is. To find a style, we need to practice photography so long and so much that we end up repeating certain compositions, color palettes, and themes simply because we prefer them over the others. Therefore, I believe a style is to an extent an unconscious thing for a photographer. It's easier for the viewers to identify someone's style than the artist themselves, because the artist unintentionally feels attracted to certain ways of photographing, which ends up making their style. So that is my take on this topic. I hope I didn't disappoint you with this answer. Do you have any thoughts to add? If so, I would love to read them in the comments. So that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I'd appreciate a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't yet, and I'll see you again next week in the next video. Until then, goodbye.